It's ready.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Adelaja, and I'm here on set today with Pastor Sunday Adelaja for an author review on his latest book that has just been released, Nigeria and the Leadership Question. Now, many of you know Pastor as many different things, but for the purpose of this interview, I'm going to introduce him as one of the foremost pastors in Ukraine, in Europe, and the world at large. Also, he's a renowned national transformational expert, as well as a best-selling author of the book Judgeship. Hello, Pastor. How do you do, sir?
Thank you, Layo. I'm fine. I'm okay. It's nice to have you here. Layo came here especially for this interview,
Yes, sir.
so I want to appreciate her. It's our own idea, and I think that the interview will be a blessing to many people.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for being bold enough to propose to do this. I hope many people will appreciate it and they will thank you for it.
Well, thank you so dearly, Pastor. It's an honor to be on set with you, sir.
No problem.
All right, sir. So recently, I had the rare privilege to read your book, Nigeria, the Leadership Question. And I must be frank with you, Pastor. When I picked up that book, I actually picked it up with a good dose of silencing, not because I don't trust in the power of the words you put down there, but because like every other Nigerian, I've lost hope in Nigeria, seeing its multitude of compound, complex problems. But interestingly, when I was just at the introduction of the book, I think around the 27th page or about, I was already beginning to get drawn in, by the hope you seem to project with the book. The positivity, the positive vibes and everything just caught me right from the 27th page. So, Pastor, I want to ask you, what inspired you to write this book and why now?
It was about a year ago, I think, when I began to have some burden for Nigeria as a nation. Before then, I had lived in Europe for 30 years,
Sure.
and I never thought I would ever go back to Nigeria. As a matter of fact, I had made some very critical decisions that if some political force, political powers were to remain in Nigeria to rule in the country, that I would never even go there to visit anymore.
Wow.
And I would take all my relatives and everybody away from there, that we would never go back there again. I was going to change my passport if that happened, but thank God, it was like God was listening to me. I have more faith in the government of the day and the change that happened. And it was during the election that I started thinking that I just was surprised that I know so much. And because when I read what people say in Nigeria and the leaders, the political elite, and just ordinary people who write about the country, when I read what they say and when I listen to their opinions, I know that I know better. I know what it takes to be able to, fix a lot of these things we are talking about.
Yes,
and I see that, a lot of the things I know are not being totally expressed the way I could have done. So I began, that was why, in fact, I even wanted my friends to do what I ended up doing. I called a few friends and told them, you write articles, do something about Nigeria, because you are based there, you live in their country. So won't you consider to, write the position of Christians, positions of, then I discovered that all of the people I was calling, most of them were against my opinion actually. Most of them were for the previous government. And so they were, most Christians really. And so it was just the opposite. No one was ready to do what I was asking them to do. So then I had to do it. I had to remember my profession and my training as a journalist. Wow. So I started first by writing articles. Wow. So and unfortunately, some of those articles were political. So I started writing about the coming election in Nigeria because that was the quest and the need of the day. But after writing all those articles, many people started telling me that why don't you put them in books? Why don't you put them in books? But this book is not a result of that. It's not what I wrote about in the articles. Yes. But I just decided that I would start with not the articles, or not putting the article, those ones into a book, but I will try to address the most the most critical question, as Nigerians say, the leadership question of the land. That's what, since I was a child, everybody always talk about leadership as the biggest problem of Nigeria. So I decided to share my own opinion about it. So that's why I decided to write this book, because I know that we are mistaken. The whole country is mistaken by saying our problem is just in leadership. But I know that Nigeria's problem is not the leadership. Leadership is secondary. But leadership is also one of our main problems, but not the main problem. We have a problem that is greater than that. But it will be difficult for people to believe that until they read this book.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very true. And so, Pastor, thank you so very much. And I understand now. But then you said you started writing articles, and I remember then, Pastor, how were you able to gather the boldness and the courage to delve into Nigeria's politics, even though it was just articles?
Yes, many people were actually writing me and say, Pastor, don't dabble into Nigerian politics, leave politics alone, or because that is the way it is accepted in our society.
Yes,
that is the way people see it. And they say, oh, don't spoil your name.
You're pastor.
Yeah, pastor, stay in the pulpit, mind your business. Politics is going to spoil. You don't know Nigeria, don't spoil your reputation.
Yes, sir.
But they don't know that if I begin to do like them, staying away from politics, I will just be like all other ministers they already have. So then I will not be bringing anything new. I will just be like all of them. And if you keep on doing the same thing you have always done, you will always have the same results. So nothing will change in Nigeria once we hold on to that, because we have done that all these years and nothing has changed. So if you want to change Nigeria, somebody has to stand out and come out of that stereotype. And maybe we have to begin to rather get pastors and every Christian to politics. Let's do that at least for 20 years and see what will happen. At least we have done the other one for 50 years and nothing has happened.
Yes,
so I know what I'm doing, and I know that this thing I'm doing is not wrong, and that I am a voice of God in every sphere of life, not just in politics, but in every sphere of life. I am a representative of God. I am a servant of God. And as a servant, I must represent Him everywhere He needs to be. Since God is the creator of everything, including politics, God cannot be excluded from everything He created or from anything He created. And if He is the one who created it, and I am His voice there, I'm His hand, I'm His representative on the earth, I'm His servant on the earth, I must go represent Him everywhere He needs to be. If politics is dirty, somebody needs to clean it up. And the only way to clean it up is by going there. And who can better clean it up but God? And God will not go there by sending angels. He will send somebody. I am the man. I am His servant. I must go to represent Him where He deserves to be.
So viewers, that's Pastor Sunday Adelaja for you. He taught with so much convictions, and you cannot just but get, caught up by his words. Okay, so Pastor, why did you choose the title Nigeria in the Leadership Question? Why that title?
Because it is like an epidemic in Nigeria. That leadership is our problem. Oh, we don't have any problem. Nigeria has everything. We are a great country, if not for leadership. That's what everybody has been saying.
Yes,
but it's not true. So I'm using this book to prove to them that leadership is not our problem.
And you did prove it, sir. Totally, honestly, you did.
Because it's just one of our problems, but it's not the main problem. So in this book, I'm proving to them that it's not true also that we have not been having good leaders. It's not true that we never had good leaders. I proved there that we had good leaders. There were good leaders that their terms in office were truncated, but there were also good leaders that were not sustained. That legacies were not sustained. So, but there were good leaders in the country. And people will say, oh, we never had good leaders apart from Moritala. No, we've had great leaders. Read this book, you'll find them out.
Yes, sir.
And also, but even when we have good leaders, we still have the same problem we're having now. Even when after they left, we still have the same problem. Even before that, we still had problems. Before the good leaders came, we had problems. During the bad leaders, we had problems. During civilian leaders, we had problems. During military leaders, we had problems. For 50 years, we will always have problems. So maybe we should reconsider our line of thinking that only leadership is our problem.
Yes,
and that leadership is our main problem. So that is at the core of every Nigerian's belief system. The paradigm of every Nigerian is that leadership is a problem. There is no Nigerian under the surface of the earth that doesn't know that phrase. That leadership is our problem.
Yes, sir.
And that is why I'm starting with that.
Thank you so much, Pastor. All right, so another question I have for you, sir. There's a widespread notion, of course, we just addressed that leadership is our biggest problem in Nigeria. But you did state in this book that leadership is not the biggest, it's one of the problems, but you said the biggest problem is our value system and beliefs. We have warped and warped value systems. All right, so you also say that until we change the value system of the populace and the masses, we would always have bad leaders and corrupt politicians. I remember you described it in this book, like you said, Nigeria is like having a pot that is corrupt, a pot that is filthy, and a pot that is dirty. You said anything that comes out of that pot will definitely be filthy, corrupt, and dirty. So why are we shouting on our leaders and saying they are bad and everything? Because that's the way the environment is. So my question is, how can we go about changing the value system of the populace and the masses? We all grew up in this decadence, we grew up in the midst of this corruption. So how do we suddenly change our value system overnight? Or do we have to wait for a leader like Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore? Or do we just take it upon ourselves and say we are changing? How do we change our value system, sir?
Okay. I'm going to write another book on value systems. I'm going to write another book called National Greatness.
Wow.
What makes nations great?
Wow.
Because nations are not great by the virtue of their
by the wealth,
by the
like you said.
by the virtue of their wealth, right?
Yes,
Nations are not great by the virtue of their wealth, but they are great by the greatness of their virtues. You know, by the virtue of their greatness, of their virtues, but of their.
They are not great by
the virtue of their
wealth, by the wealth
but
of
their
their
wealth of
virtues.
their virtues.
That's what,
That's what I said in the book. And I'm going to write a whole book on that. That nations are not great by the virtue of their wealth, but by the wealth of their virtues. So nations are not great by the virtues of their wealth or their potential or their mineral resources, but they are great by the wealth of their virtues. Okay, so how do we change the virtues of our country, the value system of our country? So I didn't write that here in this book. But I'm going to write that. I just made the point here in this book for people to know that is where we should be concentrating on. Value system and how to change it and how to change the value system and the values. But how do we change it? I'm going to give you the gist. I've just a little bit mentioned here, but I'm going to give you the main gist that will be in my next book.
Yes, sir.
And the gist is that value systems are developed from 4 basic institutions. The very root of value system is the value system that we have. Your value system or my value system come from 4 basic places. One, they come from the family. Your value systems were imparted to you, inculcated into you from your childhood, from where you were a child, from your family. That's one place where value system come from. 2, where value system come from. Value system come from the pulpit of the land. Pulpit from church or mosque. Pulpit. It could be from church or from church pulpit or mosque pulpit. Comes from the religion.
Right.
Number 3, where value system come from. Value system comes from the educational system of any country. What are the things that we are taught in schools, primary school, kindergarten, university, colleges? They form who we are. Campuses form a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
So, educational system. If there are no value systems there, deflated in citizens and populations, what you have. Number 4, value systems are formed by the media of the land. Those are the main four main institutions where value system come from. Now, if any country will make the mistake of letting those 4 institutions just do anything they want.
They become
They
a
live
product.
a chaotic society. In the family, they tell you this, the school tells you this, the church tells you this, the media tells you another thing. That is just the whole mess we have in Nigeria right now. And the role of the government is to monitor
Wow.
and to give direction to the value system that must be taught through educational system, through churches, through families, and through media. But of course, you cannot directly, tell every family what they're supposed to teach or what their value system is. But the church, the government has the authority to use the educational system to form exactly what value system they want for their people, just like China does, or just like America uses media, Hollywood, to form their own culture and their own value system, and the whole world is imbibing American value system because they have commission, they have people who are intentionally bringing principles and certain American values and virtues in those film industry. And the same thing with everything they do. So every country that is supposed to be great must monitor what they feed the people with through their media, what they feed the people with through their educational system, what they feed the people with through their pulpits, and what they feed the people with in their homes, morally speaking, and in terms of virtues. That is how we are going to. Then another. Okay, you go ahead. Yeah, that's enough.
So, Pastor, we can actually change our value systems in Nigeria now.
Now we can do it easy.
We can.
Easy. But nobody just knows how to do it. They don't even know where to start. That's where I'm going. I know exactly what to do.
It's actually looking awesome big to me. That's why I was saying.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you so very much, Pastor. All right, some people have said that the best form of government for Nigeria is militarism. Some have said it's communism. Some protagonists even advocate the idea they call mini democracy. This is the first time I'm coming across that word, sir. Mini democracy. I don't know. All right, so Pastor, why do you maintain that democracy is the best form of government for Nigeria, even though you cited that there are other nations where communism is being practiced, for example, and they are prosperous?
Yes. Yeah, communism, democracy, there is no doubt. Through history, we have seen communism, even though they are more prosperous than Nigeria, people who lived in communism in Russia, for example, or Ukraine here, or Cuba, or other places. But that doesn't mean that it's still the best. If you look at other countries like that have practiced democracy for long, like United States, England, Western Europe, and things like that, you see that democracy has proven itself as the best. But it was only using considering the peculiarities of Nigeria. But when I also talk about democracy, I'm talking about the power of the people.
Yes.
And even what I said now about what I had said earlier about value systems,
Yes.
even if the value system, the government is not ready to champion the cause, that is the advantage in democracy. The people themselves